Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about the Civil War and how that changed death in America. The Civil War had a toll of, it took about 2% of our total population, which equated about 620,000 people who died during the Civil War. On the home front, child mortality rates were extremely high. So death affected all aspects of life during the Civil War era. Three ways that the Civil War changed death in America was, first, we had a mourning culture. The mourning culture had different aspects to it. I'm not going to go into crazy detail. One thing that I think is really neat about it is we had professional wailers. These are a group of people who you could hire to come into your loved one's funeral to scream and cry and make your loved one appear to be extremely missed. Not saying they weren't without them. The next thing is that people wanted to know, families wanted to know that their loved ones were dying what was called a good death on the battlefield. They wanted to make sure that they were taken care of in their last moments and that someone was praying for them, someone was sitting with them, they weren't afraid. So they had nurses or fellow soldiers writing letters home to explain that they weren't scared. They felt comfortable, they were going to heaven, and they were dying a good death. And the last thing that I'm going to mention here is memorial services, and they began to change. We are seeing people being embalmed at a different pace, and we know that the Civil War, each battle was very costly whenever it came to lives, and there weren't national cemeteries during this time period. So when soldiers fell on the battlefield, they often laid there and were kind of left to nature. And we were attempting to deal with death on a scale that had never been dealt with before. And embalmers were taking advantage of this, embalming surgeons, to, practice their craft and get these people home to their loved ones so that way they could have a proper funeral. Two sources that I found on the America History and Life database, which I really like this database. I can find a lot of really good information on this. This topic is really widely written on. It's very, like I said, very interesting. And if you start researching it, you're going to get sucked in. You're going to spend a day looking into it. The first article that I'm going to mention here is by Jennifer Laws. She wrote The Death of an Era, and in this she talks about child mortality rates. She talks about the total death of the population and the fact that claiming soldiers that had died was difficult because they didn't wear dog tags at this time. The dog tags that we know soldiers wear today weren't proposed until 1862, so they weren't in place during the Civil War. And you are going to see a lot of loved ones just really not being identified and collected because we couldn't tell who was who. The other book that, the other author that I wrote about or read about here is David Book. That's why I said book. He wrote Death is Everywhere. And in his article, he takes letters from the soldiers and he talks about that death, mourning, and memorial practices, the art of the good death, and how soldiers were writing home from their bedsides and writing home from really battlefield, describing the toll that death was taking on them and really just what this aspect meant for them. So he used a lot of primary sources in his writing, a lot of diaries, a lot of journals, a lot of letters. Very interesting articles, both of them. My background for this topic, I used Drew Faust, The Republic of Suffering. Very interesting book, goes into great detail about this topic. And a lot of people may ask me, why did I become interested in this topic? Because it's a little bit outside the norm. And it came from, I'm going to hold my book up, Consecrated Dust. This is a historical fiction novel. Very, very good read if you're looking for something to read over the summer. In this book, it talks a lot about death and the death culture, and I became interested in what was factual, what was fiction off the book, and once again, I got sucked in, and the more I research, the more you find about it, the more astonished you are about the different practices, especially the culture of mourning. Super interesting topic. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you're being safe, and I look forward to listening to your lectures. Thank you.